You're listening to the TV Obsessive channel, presented by TVObsessive.com.
Hello, welcome back to the TV Obsessive Podcast, episode 10. My name is Ryan Kirksey, writer and contributor to TVObsessive.com. And as always, joined by Cameron Crane, executive editor. How are you today, Cameron? And have you ever been to French Lick, Indiana?
I'm pretty good. I have not been to French Lick itself. I don't believe. I've spent some time in Indiana. Have you ever been to Indiana?
I've been to Indianapolis once on a work trip, a couple days in and out, but never to this remote, I guess, sort of southwest corner where French Lick is.
Yeah. I haven't really either. So the sort of the southeast around Bloomington. I did go for a visit at one point. Sort of outside of Bloomington, a little bit more rural. So some vague familiarity. I also have driven the length of the state, and it's very flat for the most part. For the most part, and there's a whole lot of cornfields and soybean fields, and all of that. People probably have a sense of Indiana, but yeah. So we're going to talk about Winning Time once again. And in this week's episode, we do get a bit with Larry Bird, which is why we're talking about French Lick, Indiana. Versus per usual, we're gonna, hit on some news such as there is, maybe kind of a little bit of a light week for us. Talk a little bit about what we're watching, and then we'll dig into season 2, episode 3 of Winning Time in the latter half of the pod.
Yeah, as you said, relatively light week. Not much news coming out in terms of the strikes. Not much as results coming out in terms of new things or new announcements. So a little bit light on the news front. We spent some time the past couple weeks talking about football, and I just was noticing sort of some of the ESPN things that have been happening lately. They're very much, it seems like, going with this sort of stars and scrubs approach, or they've laid off sort of this really I would say integral or middle class of people that are sort of on-screen talent for them, and they sort of gone with this few people, your Adam Schefters and your Scott Van Pelts and your Adrian Wojnarowskis, and then a bunch of people you've never heard of. And so now Scott Van Pelt's going to be on the Monday Night Football crew, in addition to all the other duties that he has. Susie Colbert was laid off along with a whole swath of people over the past few months. So he's going to take on extra duties, but I don't mind that. I like Scott Van Pelt, and I think that's a good production that they have. So just interesting. They are getting rid of a lot of talent these days.
Yeah, I think we hit on this before, weeks ago. And they laid off a huge number of people. I'd have to get the list again, but I mean, like, some very recognizable names and faces. I don't know. I have a number of thoughts about what ESPN is doing. I don't know how much of a tangent we want to go on, but I mean, I think you're right. But what it's also been striking to me, because I guess I hadn't been watching ESPN much in recent years, and then this year I am, and it really seems like there's been a dip in the production quality.
Yeah,
and it's interesting, or like, I don't know how hard I want to be on them, but part of me wants to be hard on them, but maybe that's not fair. Like, I was watching Pardon the Interruption a few weeks ago, and Tony Kornheiser was like, I have to use my phone, my internet's out, because like they're doing it remotely now. And on the one hand, I was kind of like, okay, but on the other hand, like, are you supposed to be professionals? Like,
yeah.
It's just I don't know, man. Or the worst thing was they had some kind of remote interview with Joe Burrow, and the audio was just awful.
Yeah,
but it just seemed like they were like, well, I guess that's what he's got going on. It's a weird thing that I think that we transitioned into with the probably started in 2020, right? We started doing things remotely, and then the extent to which they're like, well, we can do this. We don't actually have to get all of the people in the studio. We can have people zoom in or what have you, and potentially that's fine. And for the most part, it looks okay, and people got good microphones. But then every once in a while, it creeps in like they don't, and they just roll with it. and I don't know.
Yeah,
Like
yeah. They're a
the editor
product
in
of,
me doesn't like that.
yeah, they're a product of their own success. You know, they got so big before streaming that, you know, their reporters and their on-screen the conveyors of the news became such personalities that these people became celebrities, and so they had to, you know, spend so much not only on them but on the leagues that they're trying to showcase on their channel. So it's a product of their own success, and then cord cutting has obviously hurt their business. So yeah, they I agree. They've suffered in recent
It's
years.
just striking to me, I guess, because I watch some of this stuff that seems more produced for the internet.
Yeah. Yeah.
And many times the production quality kind of seems higher, and it's just a bizarro world to me. In some way that feels like it's the case.
Well, on the opposite end of the spectrum, I guess there's a segue here. Someone that used to work for ESPN by the name of Bill Simmons now owns a website and podcast network called the Ringer. This is not news, but I found this really interesting piece this week that was on the Ringer about what it would be like if HGTV came to your street and turned one of the houses in your little cul-de-sac into the neon pink Barbie dream house. And so this was a really interesting look at what happens when a whole production crew not only takes over a house but rents another house on the street, and what it means when they just completely take over your neighborhood. We can put the link in there to this story. I just found it very interesting, sort of behind the scenes look at what it looks like when some takes over part of your neighborhood to complete a show.
Yeah, so I was looking at the article that you sent me the link to. But I wasn't sure on this. So just to be clear, you have you watched the Barbie Dreamhouse Challenge on HGTV?
Oh no.
Okay.
No.
I don't know. Maybe sort of interesting. I feel like I'm a little bit of a weirdo because I was reading it and I got to where they said, "Oh well, you know, they're promising all the people in the neighborhood, no, we're not going to leave it like this."
Yeah,
and part of me thought like that's no fun. You know, you can't have a flamboyant house. I don't know. There's something in me like my grandmother always wanted to paint her house bright red. You know, and it was like, yeah, let's do it.
No HOA in the world will allow that these days.
Yeah, but you know,
this crew came in and turned this street upside down for a few months, and then 3 months after they left, they put it all back and are now trying to sell the house for profit, which I guess they can because it was the Barbie dream house.
But it no longer looks like the Barbie dream house.
Nope, they've toned it all down.
They won't let us have any fun. These housing associations, you know, it's just all of these people in the world are like, you can't have fun. You can't. You know. What if I owned a house and wanted to make it bright pink just because I like it? You know, people
good luck
to the authorities and.
Good luck getting that through your HOA. Well, listen, this is the type of stuff we get when it's a slow news week. So what caught your eye?
Yeah, we do have a couple of things. A number of people were rather upset about a couple of cancellations that were announced this week, particularly A League of Their Own. Amazon at right around the same time, maybe it was the same day or maybe there was a day in between, also announced the cancellation of The Peripheral. Which I wrote on the first season. Actually, I didn't love it, but I kind of wanted to see more. I think what's striking about both of these, it sucks for fans of the show, but also in both instances they had renewed it, and the announcement was them rolling back their renewal, and they're trying to blame it on the strikes. Yeah, Amazon is trying to blame it on the strikes. I don't know that makes sense. I don't think it makes sense personally. I mean, like, that's kind of, you know, convoluted logic, you know, they're saying like, oh, but you know, by the time this is resolved, we're going to have other stuff and we're not going to be able to do this. And, you know, we're going to have a log jam. It's like, really, you know,
it's just such an easy scapegoat these days for networks to pull the plug on things like this. I mean, this is the same network that spent $500 million on the Lord of the Rings show. You know, they went all over the world and have done 5 seasons of Jack Ryan. I mean, this is Amazon and Jeff Bezos. They've got money to throw at this if they want, the strike notwithstanding.
Yeah, they've got money to throw at it, and the timing is. I mean, both of these shows aired like over a year ago. I think I'd have to double check the exact date on them. on the peripheral. Have you watched either of these? You check out A League of Their Own?
I've not seen either of these. League of Their Own is one of my wife and I's favorite movie of all time, but I've not caught either of these shows before.
Well, no, I mean, I don't know. A lot of people got really into A League of Their Own in particular. I
Yeah.
know there are also people out there who are really into the peripheral and really, really loved it more than I did, and that's fair. I thought it was kind of great at first and then became unsure about it, as often happens with sci-fi. This is based on a William Gibson book. So William Gibson is sad. Come on, Amazon. How are you going to bum out the great William Gibson by canceling the show based on the book that he wrote? He's a fan of the show. Just make it for William Gibson. Um, we've been on the Jeopardy beat, so we'll hit this.
Yeah.
They've announced that Ken Jennings is going to host Celebrity Jeopardy, which I guess has usually been Blossom. I was always thinking it was Blossom. My Alec. I guess I was reading. She's a member, I guess, of both unions. She's a member of both the WGA and SAG.
Oh, is that right? Okay.
Yeah.
So she's doing this in solidarity, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, I think that technically speaking, maybe she could get away with it, because there's weird different rules for game shows and stuff like that. I am more curious, and they haven't announced at all who are the celebrities going to be.
Yeah, really.
Of course, even if all of our actors say, "Hey, I'm not going to do it," I suppose they could fill the lineup with, Shaquille O'Neal and stuff like that.
Yeah. We got plenty of athletes and reality stars and TikTokers that they can pull in there to
I don't know why I jumped to Shaq. Has Shaq ever been on Celebrity Jeopardy? I just want to see Shaq.
I don't know, man.
I want to see. Look, give me. Here's what I want, right? We're in basketball mode, right? I want them to take the TNT crew.
Oh yeah.
And I want to just put all of them on the same episode of Celebrity Jeopardy. I think that would just be. That's how we go. Give us Chuck and Shaq and Kenny.
You would have instant content to rival some Sean Connery Saturday Night Live Jeopardy, I think, in that circumstance. I think it'd be better than that.
I think it'd be wonderful. They announced a date for the revival of Frasier. It's been on my radar for a while. I don't know if it has been for everyone else. So I guess that's coming October 12th. Watch Frasier, Ryan? It's been a while since it was on.
But... I've seen most of Frasier. I can't say that I'm a Frasier completionist, but love Cheers, obviously, and all that, but not the entirety of Frasier. I know that Frasier had some hardcore fans and just people that love this show. Just sort of curious your thoughts with obviously his dad is John Mahoney passed away a few years ago. David Hyde Pierce is not returning for this. Just your thoughts on how this will play without some key players in the show.
Yeah, I mean, it's more that David Hyde Pierce isn't returning. Apparently, that's I don't know, man. I need a Frasier without Niles.
Yeah, I know.
Similar to you, probably. I've seen some Frasier. I've never binged all of Frasier. I've known people who are really into Frasier. I dated a woman briefly who was like, she only watched Frasier. It seemed like, I was like, okay. But I mean, it's pretty good. I kind of get it. I think it's a comfort show for a lot of people. Curious to see what they do with the revival. I hope they have an idea that warrants its existence. I mean, apparently we are going to get at least a little bit of Roz. I don't know exactly how much Lilith, but like, okay, there's going to be some legacy characters, if you like. So we'll see. I know Kelsey Grammer is big on this, and like I saw some quote where he referred to Frasier as his ministry, and I don't know what I think about that. But,
now he's back in Boston, right? This is not Seattle anymore. He's back in Boston, if I understand it.
Something like that. Yeah, I'd have to double check the details. I just skimmed through something fairly briefly, but yeah, Frasier's coming. I mean, I'm curious to check it out. I guess we get a lot of reboots, we get a lot of revivals. It's a mixed bag, in my opinion. The other thing that caught my eye that's been announced, this is going to premiere at the New York Film Festival, and then really no idea when it's going to be released. I think it's going to be on Showtime. this new it's a scripted series called The Curse from Nathan Fielder, Benny Safdie. It's supposed to star Nathan Fielder and Emma Stone and be like an HGTV spoof. You're mentioning, hey, HGTV through line this week. I don't know. I'm a fan of Nathan Fielder. I think we've talked about this before. You watched like The Rehearsal, Nathan for
Yes.
You.
Yes.
Um,
Yeah. So when you say HGTV spoof, and I'm not probably read as much about this as you have, what exactly do you mean by that? I'm curious for sort of what the format of the show is going to be.
I don't know. I mean, I just read a little article, and that's all I've got. My understanding is that what's meant by this is that it's going to be like they're a couple involved in one of these HGTV home renovation shows or something like that. And it goes wrong and the house is cursed or something. I know this one guy. The thing that stood out to me is they say it's scripted, so I don't mean that.
Yeah, that's essentially to me is his shows are not. I think when I've never seen a show that's 100% scripted. There's a
I
skeleton, we could
certainly would
say, but
not
never
call The
scripted.
Rehearsal scripted. I would say like that's wrong.
No.
Like I don't know if maybe certain things were planned or what have you. I mean, it's weird, and part of what I really enjoyed about The Rehearsal is like how it really blurs the line between reality and fiction. So I don't know if this is going to be along similar lines to that, or to what extent, or different. But I don't know. I'm kind of excited for that. It's coming down the pike.
Yeah. If I'll just do a quick tangent into if you want a funny 80s movie to watch along this same topic, The Money Pit with Tom Hanks and Shelley Long, about a house that's seemingly cursed. That's a great movie I used to watch when I was a kid. So
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I
Mhm.
was thinking about that as well. The image that sticks in my mind is when he falls through the floor and got the rug around him and he's going, yeah. Yeah, that's a
Oh
good
gosh.
one.
Okay, well I'll check that after the rehearsal. I'll be checking out things that Nathan Fielder does, so I'll certainly check in on that one.
Yeah, absolutely. I have no idea when the release might be a ways off, but I guess it
Yeah.
can premiere to the New York Film Festival, and so maybe not that far off. I mean, I do think that some stuff that maybe they were going to do a little bit later, they're going to end up doing a little bit earlier because of the strike. That's one possibility. So we'll see how all of this goes. But all right. So yeah, moving forward, I know you're on top of Ahsoka, right? Which comes out today.
So yeah, we're recording
Um,
this on Tuesday the 22nd. Tonight is the 2 episode premiere of Ahsoka. I mentioned this to you earlier. My head is just swimming in Star Wars background and animated series and reading through synopses of books and comics and everything I can to get my head around who Ahsoka Tano is ahead of the premiere tonight. It's funny in reading through this. I'm also gone through some of the things that Dave Filoni, the creator of this series and the guy who wrote every episode, has said. He's pegging a lot on the future of Star Wars on this show that's coming out tonight. He's doing it in a way where the things I've been watching to prepare for this are Star Wars Rebels, Tales of the Jedi, Clone Wars, all of these sort of background but still canon pieces of Star Wars lore. But he is hoping that this builds into a MCU-esque Avengers Endgame thing where we can put all these people together from Ahsoka and Mandalorian and movies into this timeline where it eventually culminates in some kind of big project. So a lot of it relies on how well this show does, but Filoni's the George Lucas apprentice. So we'll see. I have high hopes for it, and we'll be finding out tonight.
yeah, cool. That's interesting. Rosario Dawson's playing Ahsoka. I like Rosario Dawson.
Yes.
I don't know, man. I'm total. You're talking about how you're immersed in Star Wars, and over the past decade, I just kind of was like, yeah, maybe I'm not really into Star Wars. So I mean, where does this fit in terms of the timeline? Is it like between the original trilogy and the sequel trilogy, or
Yes. So
just
this
have to
takes
do with
place
Simon?
somewhere. Yeah, this is somewhere in the 5 to 10 years after Return of the Jedi. And so there are some things in the animated series that explain where Ahsoka was or why Ahsoka was not around during the events of that original trilogy, A New Hope, Empire Strikes Back, and Return of the Jedi. So some of that will likely be explored, but this also is sort of a live version continuance of the animated Star Wars Rebels, which ended a few years back. And so a lot of the characters that we'll see in this show tonight, and supposedly the big bad as well, that was teased in one of the trailers, are all a continuation of what happened to these characters after the events of Star Wars Rebels, which happens just a couple of years before the timeline of the original trilogy. So it kind of picks up on where these characters are after that.
All right. Well,
So,
cool. I hope you enjoy it. I hope everyone in the world enjoys it too.
yes, and
Everyone who watches this
that
is
is
going to enjoy it.
that is the tip of the iceberg of all of what we have to explore as we look into Ahsoka. So I've been trying to immerse myself in it, and I'm ready to. I think I have 5 episodes of Rebels left, so I think I'm 80 episodes in or something like that, and ready to wrap those things up and catch Ahsoka tonight.
Yeah, you got some Star Wars to binge. Hitting on a lot of sci-fi. Invasion premieres tomorrow, and I'm writing on that, so that's something I've been watching. I dipped back into the X-Files last night. It's the 30th anniversary of the X-Files in September. 30 years. You watch the X-Files? You watch it when you were younger? Or?
I think I've seen the first 2 seasons of X-Files. That's another one, probably one of my wife's top 3 favorite shows. She loved that. She has binged that a couple of different times. That's one I've got to move up higher on my list to go back and make sure that I complete it.
Right on. It's a mixed bag.
Yeah.
But I enjoy the mixed baggedness of it personally. Like I decided several years ago now that I was going to binge through all of it. I guess it was before the revival was coming out or whatever. So maybe it's been a little while. And like some of the episodes aren't very good, and that's fine. It's like give me these 22 episode seasons, and then you're gonna have some cases of the week that maybe don't land for you. I'm gonna work through for the site. I'm gonna write on the Darren Morgan episodes of the X-Files. So that's when I got started. I was watching Humbug last night, which is the first one he wrote. I'm gonna do Clyde Bruckman and Jose Chung, and I don't know. He's got that quirky. I don't know if you're how familiar you are, Ryan, but Darren Morgan's responsible for like some of the quirkiest pieces in the X-Files, you might say. He like enters in the second season, and then I think it really does kind of add this dimension of humor and levity to the X-Files universe that maybe wouldn't have been there otherwise. So I'm a fan, so I'm going to work through that. What else have we been watching? Hard Knocks? You checked on Hard Knocks again?
Yeah, I'm current. I'll probably have to delay tonight so I can immerse myself even further in Star Wars history and lore. But yeah, up on Hard Knocks, I found that to be episode 2 was good. I enjoyed episode 1 much more. But there's some things that have happened in the New York Jets preseason that I believe starting tonight they'll start to touch on that should add some interesting layers of players that have signed, players that have gotten hurt, some things that have happened at the camp. So interested to continue to check that out, and I certainly will make time for it this week at some point.
Yeah, man. I want to see that running back round.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah, indeed. I want to see Breece Hall. I want to see Dalvin Cook. Yeah.
Show me Breece Hall's reaction when he finds out the news. That's all I want to see.
Yeah. Oh, he's probably happy.
Yeah, right.
He's a good guy. But yeah, I mean, it has been interesting. I know that they kind of shoved it down their throats, as Aaron Rodgers said. But he seems really chill. He seems to really be leaning into it, actually. And the whole attack he's taking with Zach Wilson is really kind of interesting. And
yeah,
go ahead.
I was going to say the Aaron Rodgers part of this thing, as you said, has been very, very chilled, very different than maybe what we heard about Aaron Rodgers prior to Hard Knocks and about some of the demands he makes, some of the things that he does. So there's some conspiracy heads out there that said that Aaron Rodgers forced the Jets to sign Dalvin Cook because he knows him. He's played against him 2 times a year for the past 4 years. He doesn't know or trust this guy, Breece Hall, who's an injured running back. So I don't know. We're seeing a different Aaron Rodgers than, has been portrayed. It's been interesting to sort of see that sort of duality of his character.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know how much of a conspiracy it is. Like, Rodgers took a salary cut. Why does he take a salary cut? Go sign other players with that money. You know what I mean?
Right,
Like,
right.
I actually think it'd be totally reasonable. He was like, "How about this guy Dalvin Cook, who's out there?"
Yeah. This is the way that it works, actually.
Yeah, that's fine. The more interesting thing to me maybe is the extent to which I've started to feel like all of this stuff. I'm getting invested in the Zach Wilson redemption arc. Like, I want a Zach Wilson redemption arc. Rodgers out there saying, like, I'll play for a few good years, and then Zach will take over for 15 more or whatever.
Yeah.
And finally myself going, like, really, because I mean, the guy was, you got to feel somewhat bad for him. He was virtually getting booed out of town last year.
Yep.
But they kept him around, and yeah, I mean, I don't know if somehow he can ultimately turn it around and take over the reins from Aaron Rodgers in a couple of years and become a good NFL quarterback. It'd be a great story.
Yeah.
That's all I'm saying. It'd be a great story.
Speaking of great stories, if you're just bored tonight as you're falling asleep, just Google some of the news in the past 12 months with Zach Wilson and his shenanigans, some of his extracurricular activities, shall we say, and you'll be quite amused.
Yeah. No, I think I know what you're referring to. But yeah, I don't know. Whatever. But besides being good for the one share of Zach Wilson I have on a dynasty roster was sitting there, I'd really like to see it. It'd be a good story.
Yeah.
All right. Well, so should we move towards winning time?
Yeah, let's transition from football to basketball and get into some winning time.
Yeah, apologies for anyone who doesn't, like all the sports. It won't always be like this. Probably. But okay, so we're gonna dig into Winning Time, season 2, episode 3. As per usual, we'll take a quick little break in between this and that. Do be aware that on the other side of that break, as we talk about Winning Time, there will be spoilers. We're gonna talk about what happened in the episode. We're gonna, dig into things a bit. So if you haven't seen it, you can listen anyway if you want to, but be aware of that. We're going to talk about what happened in this past Sunday's episode of Winning Time. And maybe also, hit on some of the stuff we know about the NBA history and so on and so forth. So that's what you're getting into. All right. So we'll take 10 seconds or so. Now, Alex.
Okay, we are back, ready to talk about Winning Time, season 2, episode 3. And Cameron's already given us our spoiler warning for that, talking about this season, last season, and the NBA history surrounding this story, primarily of this. We're now in the off season of the 1980-1981 season. We talked about just right before the break here about the amount of football and basketball we're talking about. There's actually not much basketball in this episode. It's much more of the behind the scenes, off season turmoil. This episode focuses on the tension that's rising after the Lakers' embarrassing loss in the 1981 playoffs, tension between Paul Westhead and Pat Riley, those coaches versus Jerry Buss and the management. There's still lingering resentment between Magic Johnson and Norm Nixon. Jerry and Jeannie Buss are at odds about how to run things and who's in charge of certain aspects of the business. And then all the while, the Lakers had to watch the Celtics win the 1981 NBA Finals and sort of suffer the quiet embarrassment of seeing those rivals take home the trophy that they thought would be theirs. And then we look at, in this episode, the backstory of Mr. Larry Bird and his family from French Lick, Indiana, and what happened right before and right after he joined the Celtics. So with that background, Cameron, what sort of general thoughts on this episode?
Yeah, first of all, I love the scene where they're watching the Celtics celebrate, Magic and Jerry Buss, and Jerry Buss is like lounging in his underwear and a robe. And this is a great vibe.
I don't want anything to be more real in that show than that
Yeah.
happened.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's it's like the cigar smoke is coming out of the screens at them and so on and so forth. I thought that was great. I also really enjoyed the bit where Jerry Buss is like interrogating a round of people and they like cut between different figures. I thought that was really well done here. We did get some basketball with Jerry. I'm sorry, with Larry Bird playing in jeans. Which we're going to talk about fact checking a couple of things here. I forgot to fact check this. I realized I trusted the show. The show told us that it was true, right? They like not only did they have him come on the court wearing jeans and a flannel, they put up a little cryon thing like, yes, he really wore jeans. Do you know that that's true? Or I mean, because it could be like a Fargo thing, right? Do you know that he really wore jeans?
I mean, I've heard that before. That Larry Bird gets convinced to come to Indiana State. He shows up to a practice, his first practice in jeans, goes out there and it just sort of drops on everybody's head like he would, for the rest of his career. So I've heard that story before, but I don't have any way to dispute it. Yeah. And if they're telling me that it's real, I mean, I guess they've done their homework there.
Yeah, I guess. But again, it's a fictional show, and I mean, I believe it. But I think maybe it could be apocryphal. Maybe it's been one of these things that's just been out there. Like everyone accepts. No one. Larry Bird has no interest in disputing it. He's like, yeah, that fits my image. Yes, I went out there wearing. I was wearing boots too. Whatever. To start ramping it up. But I mentioned Fargo because that's infamous in my mind. The beginning of Fargo, the movie, says like, this is based on real events and all of that. And no, it's like actually they sucked in. That's part of the fictional frame. So, but okay, we'll go ahead and believe that Jerry. I'm sorry, not Jerry. We'll go ahead and believe that Larry Bird played in jeans. What did you think of the rest of how they portrayed Larry Bird? We get a little bit with his dad, Joe Bird. I don't know how did all that work for you?
Yeah, I went and did some reading on this after that episode aired, just sort of see what Larry Bird had to say, not about this particular episode, but just about his history. And as you might expect, he's very much a closed book about this, very much doesn't like to talk about it, very much said that, I think his quote that he gave to a reporter 15 or 20 years later was, I thought I handled my dad's suicide well. Right. So it's just sort of not giving too much about this story. So really this whole thing that happens where Bird leaves University of Indiana, comes back home, meets with his dad. His dad sort of reads him the right act on how he's wasting his talent by not pursuing basketball. Eventually, reluctantly gets recruited by a scout to come to Indiana State, and then we see this final scene of the episode where Joe Bird, Larry Bird's father, has committed suicide. Now that is true. He did commit suicide with a shotgun, and we don't know that Larry Bird walked in and saw this, and the police called him over there. We don't know any of those details, but it was pretty sobering to me to see this, and also sort of see how it may frame the person that we know as Larry Bird, how penetrating he is, how motivated he is, how much of a guy he's just going to come out and destroy you because maybe he's got these things in him that he needs to get out, but he's not good at expressing them verbally. He's not good at expressing them emotionally. So he expresses them on the basketball court. And so he sort of became this guy who will just do everything he can to put you in the ground after suffering. I mean, this was not the first, I think, traumatic thing that he had in his childhood. The parents separated. It was a bad situation. He had younger brothers and sisters, right? So, but it really did do a good job to me for framing who Larry Bird is and helping me understand the basketball player that I've known for so many years.
Yeah, right. I mean, I thought it was really. I didn't know, I guess, about Joe Bird's suicide before watching this. I don't know. I feel like I know a lot of things, but apparently I didn't really know about that. But yeah, I mean, at least the event itself occurred, right? I think I want to focus on the extent to which I agree. I think they do a good job of kind of employing in the show to deepen Larry Bird's character and sort of where he's coming from Um, and to think about the real life Larry Bird, but also the portrayal of Larry Bird in the show, which to this point has been, I think it's fair to say that mostly the show portrays him as an asshole.
Yep.
But
Yep.
but here, I mean, there've been maybe some prior moments that were sympathetic also, but this kind of lays into that a bit more, and I really appreciated that. Also the scene where Red comes to talk to him to get him to agree to come to the Celtics because apparently he wants to go back to Indiana State.
Yeah.
Wants to win a college championship, that's fascinating too, because
Yeah.
IU has a storied basketball history, right? Indiana State, not so much, man.
Right.
Um,
Yeah, that's something they didn't explore was what were his motivations to actually go to that specific school. Obviously, as you said, Indiana won titles under Bob Knight before Larry Bird's time. They won titles with Isaiah Thomas after Larry Bird's time. So I don't understand or know much about Bird's motivations to go to Indiana State beyond this scout just pestering him every day.
Yeah, right. I mean, I don't know either. That'd be something might be interesting to look into a little bit more. I only kind of have what the show gives us here, and maybe maybe everything is kind of speculation anyway at this level. Like with all of this, we know the facts. We know that like he went to IU, he dropped out. Yeah, his father committed suicide. He went to Indiana State. Which again, I don't know. I'm not an expert in college basketball history, but certainly I can't think of another time when Indiana State was that competitive. So, however he got,
Certainly not. Certainly not. And it was all Larry Bird. It was all Larry Bird.
Yeah. So
yeah, and I think at this point it's also worth explaining. I saw some chatter on social media and other places about needing an explanation of Larry Bird's situation. Larry Bird was drafted number 6 overall in the summer of 1978 by the Celtics. He told them at that time he wanted to go back to school and try to win a championship. He did do that. He went back to school, made it to the championship game, lost to Magic Johnson and Michigan State. And so then it was a sense of if he did not sign with the Celtics before that draft in 1979 happened, then his draft rights would have gone right back into the pool, and whoever had the number 1, 2, 3, 4 pick would have selected him. So that's why we see Red Auerbach there trying to convince him to sign with the Celtics before that draft in 1979 happens. So the Celtics sort of owned his rights, even though he went back to school for another year.
Yeah, it's a weird quirk of how the whole draft situation works. And yeah, thanks for explaining that. People appreciate it. I know in Hawk's article we put out, he kind of glossed over this, and I thought that's fine. Probably for a lot of people you just like gloss over it, but people are curious. You make me realize something that I'm not sure that I know, which is could the same kind of thing potentially happen now? Is it that it just doesn't happen, or do they change the rules,
I believe both in the NBA and NFL now there is a declaration date that you must decide I'm going to be in the draft and therefore forego my eligibility in the NCAA after this date.
Right.
So you can declare your intention, and if you either A, cross that date, or B, hire an agent, then you have lost your NCAA eligibility. So they sort of changed that rule to where you couldn't get drafted and then go back in to the pool. The only place where that can happen now is if you come out of high school as a baseball draftee, you can decide, no, I don't like my spot, I'm going to college instead, and re-enter the baseball draft after 3 years of college.
Interesting. Yeah. I mean, lots of shifts on drafts and
in
the NFL too. I mean, of course, certain things have happened. When you've got big name players who get drafted number 1, they say, "Well, I'm not going to play for the San Diego."
Exactly.
So like, things are they kind of, I think, wrinkled out a lot of, or ironed out a lot of these wrinkles that can cause. I mean, man, can you imagine how upset Red Auerbach would be? Would have been. if Larry Bird had not, you know, if he
had not
come
signed.
to the Celtics, he goes to visit him personally. And
I mean,
everything.
we don't know obviously that what entailed in what was entailed in that conversation, but if that's close to what he said, I mean, he's right. Boston, working class, hard workers would respect who you are. Hands are dirty type of folks, and just really want somebody to come in and not mess around and get things done. You did a good job selling him on Boston if you wanted him to sign before that next draft.
Yeah, and I think maybe that feeds into some of the stuff we were talking about with the college situation, or this is the implication at least, that almost because IU has that history, and
Yeah.
because he went there and it felt like so much like a college, like that was almost too too polished, too
Yeah.
elitist or something for Larry
Yeah.
Bird. I think this is the implication. But then when it's Indiana State, who has like no history,
Yeah.
who's just like, you can come in here. And I mean, it suggests, I think, all of this, that Larry Bird found real motivation in the idea of being the underdog or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so interesting.
I think that's a great point. That's a really great point. That what does it mean if you're just the next guy at Indiana to take the team to a championship, right? There have been a bunch of guys who have done that. There'll be a bunch of guys who will do that. Indiana State, like I said, have we heard from them since 1979? I'm sure they've made the tournament, but they've not done anything really worth mentioning. So
I am not sure they made the tournament. Yeah. We can double check, but I am not sure that they have. But yeah. So, but then thinking about the scene with Red, that he seems to get that. Again, it's a fictional portrayal, but precisely the things that he says to Larry in that scene are hitting on this front. Not just the working class stuff that you mentioned, but also building a franchise around the kind of player that Larry Bird is. No one does that. We'll be the first to do it. Building around what's he uses the term, wingman or something?
Say that again.
Does he use the term wingman or something like this?
Oh,
something on the terminology felt.
So yeah, Red Auerbach keeps talking about Larry Bird as a corner man, right? So until recently, actually, the NBA was always a guards and centers league. Fours were just there to play defense, get some steals, score when they're open. But it's, guards and centers run the league. And so this was the thinking behind, make sure Magic Johnson is a point guard, even though he's 6'9". And here comes Larry Bird, who can do everything, but he's essentially a 6'8", 6'9" small forward. And so where do you put him? He's not really fast enough, athletic enough to run point guard. He's not big enough to play center. And so teams just weren't built around forwards at that time. This is obviously pre Kevin Durant and Kevin Garnett and these guys. And so this was sort of the first time that he said, you know what, I have the best in the world, so I'm going to build my team around that.
Well, yeah, no, I mean, I knew what he was talking about. I guess I'm not sure that I'd heard the term corner man before. That feels like it's an outmoded term.
It was just a derogatory term for a wingman that we might call today, that they didn't care about him basically at that point.
Yeah, right. I said wingman. I couldn't even remember they said corner. Yeah. But yeah, good. So there's a lot of stuff, a lot of just focusing on tensions in this episode. We have the whole ongoing tension between Magic and Norm, and that scene where Jerry Buss invites Norm over to his house, and then it turns out Magic is there. Again, I don't know if this really happened. I don't know if it's known whether it really happened. I know that Hawk, who's writing on the show for the site, expressed that he really hated Magic in this episode, and in that scene in particular. Did you feel like he's like prancing around eating celery and stuff like that?
Yeah. So to sort of equate it to something that I'm spending a lot of time with right now, if Jerry Buss was Emperor Palpatine, you had Magic Johnson walking around like Darth Vader, just sort of imposing himself on Norm Nixon during that entire brunch, right? That he's just sort of he's been, I think, railroaded. Norm Nixon has by this meeting, not understanding what it's going to be about. Magic's aware, obviously, now of the $25 million contract he's been given, which we should talk about in a minute. And then, yeah, I think Norm Nixon's just coming to realization that I got to understand my place on this team, or I'm not going to be on this team anymore. We know that he's last another 2 seasons with the Lakers, but this is sort of the, hey, guess what, Norm? Magic is my guy. You better get in line and shut your mouth to the press, especially if you're gonna stick around here.
Yeah. Did you feel like Magic was being, like unduly cocky or arrogant? It actually didn't really land that way for me personally.
It sort of landed as, I know that I'm the guy now, but maybe not. I didn't take it as over the top arrogant or cocky or anything.
Yeah, I wonder. Maybe because we know this is Magic Johnson. It could be fine. You do whatever you want. Yeah. That we know that he will show out that he almost has the right to be cocky and arrogant, prideful, or whatever if he is. I mean, so yeah, you want to talk about the contract? Apparently, this is true. 25 years, $25 million in 1981.
This is true. This actually happened. This obviously at the time when people were making, $80,000-$90,000 sometimes to be a player in the league. The greatest of the greats were making $2 million. That's what Jabbar's salary was at this time. To give someone a 25-year, $25 million contract, it is what Buss said it was. It is a commitment to play here forever, but also commitment to be a Laker and be a part of this organization forever. So yes, this happened. But looking back on it and sort of with a 2023 lens, might not be as bad as people might have thought it was or reported that it was back in 1981.
I don't know, bad. You're talking about comparing it to current salaries.
Yeah. If you just look at it from an inflationary perspective, that's about $80 million, $90 million in today's money. And, you got guys like Jock Landale getting a $50 million contract with the NBA this year. Nobody's ever heard of Jock Landale. So, I mean, it's just not
what was
not
the
that
recent,
bad.
the very recent Celtics contract? What was sorry, Jaylen Brown got a big contract.
Yeah, Jaylen Brown made like $300+ million.
Yeah, exactly. Which, I'll just throw this in there. You encounter any number of people in the world who, like, I don't know, express that kind of negative view about these big athlete salaries. And I just want to say, I don't share that disposition. Get your money.
Yeah.
Get your money. Come on,
get what you're worth.
Get it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not like that money is going from nowhere. I mean, like if you want to start like saying, oh, but that money could fund social programs or something like that, it's like, okay, well, maybe, but either tax the NBA as a whole more or something. We'd have to see how that goes because they're getting their, the players are getting their cut of the billions and billions of dollars of revenue.
Exactly.
And so, like, if it's not going to the players and going to the owners or whatever here, so yeah, pay them. Get your money. Come on.
So to your point, Jaylen Brown just signed a 5-year, $303 million contract with the Celtics. So imagine signing Jaylen Brown to $303 million or signing Magic Johnson for $90 million. I mean, it's just sort of, it looks like a steal when you have the hindsight of 40 years of NBA history and contracts to look back on.
Yeah, but I think it just goes to show too that it's not just a matter of inflation, but it's a matter of the popularity of the league.
Exactly.
And a matter of the amount of money that they're taking in overall, and how much that has grown in the past 40 years, right? Which of course that's always been presented as like part of this story. If we think back to the very beginning of Winning Time, the TV show where we started, you remember like Jerry Buss, saying like why can't basketball be sexy, No. Like why can't we get this sport to be that kind of thing that's hip that people are into? Let's get the Laker girls going. That whole thing. I guess they haven't quite returned to that thread so much, but that there's a novelty to what the Lakers are doing here in the early '80s, not just in terms of how they're playing the game and all of that, but the whole idea of this is a show. I think that's part of why there's a Showtime Lakers, because it's like it's not just that they were really good, but it's like we're gonna put on a show for you.
And let's not forget, we're not actually going to get Pat Riley and the Showtime Lakers until sometime in the next basketball season. We're not even to
Yeah.
the Showtime Lakers yet, which again surprised me when I saw. I went back to check after Sunday's episode, and I was thinking because this was a relatively tight time frame that we focus on here. This is just a matter of like a few days, maybe in the off season of 1981. So, is this a 10, 12 episode season? No, this is a 7 episode season. So
Correct.
we're about to be at the halfway mark here. And if, as we anticipated or as we predicted, that we're going to get to the 1984 finals, we got a lot of ground to cover between now and then.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's what they'll do. That's how they've set it up.
Yeah.
And I mean, if anything, I'd expect them to go further than that. Like, I feel like we have to get at least to 1984, guys. We have to get at least to 1984. And they kind of made that cinematic promise in how episode 1 and open. I was surprised when I first saw that it was 7 episodes. Yeah. I mean, I guess I've done this the whole time. Maybe you did too, and it slipped your mind or something. But why is it only 7 episodes? I figure they must get the work done they want to get done in those 7 episodes. I hope, and maybe this is a good time to lump in. Hopefully they get a season 3. Jeff Pearlman's out there. Did you see his tweet where he said, like, since I'm the only one who can pimp for winning time? Did you see that tweet?
He's out. Yeah, he's out there begging for viewers for the show right now.
Yeah, Jeff Pearlman would be, if any listeners aren't aware, he would be the guy who wrote the book that this show is based on, right? The book is called Showtime, and I mean, I saw the tweet. He was saying, tweet, hashtag more winning time, and he was saying he was going to pick a few people to send an autographed book to. It was really
and he said something to the effect of HBO really cares about the numbers, and so I think we could imply from that maybe the numbers aren't as good as they were in season 1, which worries me a little bit.
Yeah, I did read that elsewhere also, that apparently the numbers are not as good. But they often get an interesting thing where they lag a bit and then they'll bring in the streaming numbers later. And then I think that with season 1, the numbers were lower when it premiered and then kicked up as it went along, like the thing built momentum. For whatever reason. I found myself wondering, like, did things like Jerry West threatening a lawsuit help this show? So, like, can we make that happen? Can we get Larry Bird complaining about this episode? Like, maybe it'll help the show, I don't care, but people need to watch it.
We're about to get Pat Riley as a coach coming soon. So we need to get his thoughts on the Riley Westhead relationship, and maybe that'll create some buzz.
I don't think he's spoken to this show at all.
No.
That would be fascinating. I want to hear what Pat Riley has to say about this show. Like, someone pester him. We're going to get coming up here. We're already getting some of it. Some of the tension that's leading to the schism between Pat Riley and Paul Westhead. Yeah, which, narratively speaking, kind of sucks because I did enjoy them as buddies, like in season 1 and stuff. But we know where that's going, So when they portray that on screen, people need to pester Pat Riley just constantly. Like, Pat, what do you think about this? Do you think this is fair? Do you think that it's fair the way that the show presented you sure, bug Paul Westhead too, but I feel like Pat Riley's probably the bigger figure. If you can get him to speak to it at all.
I think that's I think that's the little kick in the pants the show might need, at least in terms of viewership. I just have found all 3 episodes to be great so far, but hey, if we need more viewers, let's do what it takes to get some eyeballs on it.
Yeah, so I'm just spitballing ideas. You can go rewatch the show, tell your friends to watch the show, talk about it on social media. Let's get some buzz going here. Because, man, it sure would be a shame. Presumably they do get to.
But hey, we're about to get into the best. Yeah, we're about to get into the best parts of this whole rivalry, of the team building, of the team itself, and the dynamics. As you and I were talking off air, we don't even have Byron Scott and James Worthy yet. So we're about to get to some
Yeah.
real meat of this story coming up in the next season or two.
That's got to come. James Worthy and all of that. My expectation would be that comes in the next couple of episodes. I feel like we've got to get to 1984 by the end of the season. That seems clearly signposted as the plan. But man, it would be such a shame if this series ended there, without reminding people of what happens in the 1984 NBA Finals unnecessarily. It would be a bummer if that was the end of the show. And so I do hope they get at least one more season. And as we've been talking about all of this and Magic's contract and all of that, I really want them to get circled back around to the early 90s ultimately.
Yes.
And when we started the series with Magic and his HIV diagnosis, well, at this point, I really want to see all the stuff behind the scenes that we haven't gotten in terms of how Jerry Buss reacts to that and what goes on organizationally in terms of handling that, which was a huge deal.
I just think there's so much story to tell here. There's so much built into this show being called The Rise of a Dynasty. We can't have a dynasty if we've just seen the Lakers win one title. So there is so much good meat left on the bone here of this story. I would hate to think that something would happen. This would be the last season. So yeah, whatever. Tell your friends, tell your family. Let's. I think we both recommend this show going forward.
Yeah, absolutely. And apparently, go on X and post an X about how you want hashtag more winning time, and like maybe Jeff Pearlman might send you a book. So I guess I don't know. I don't know how long that contest lasts. Or, but I saw that I can see that.
No idea. I had no idea. We can't. State made it to the tournament 2000, 2001, and 2011, and in those 3 years won one total game against University of Oklahoma. So there you go. There's their history.
Okay. Well, my apologies. I was a little too demeaning. I guess they did a little bit better than I just don't recall seeing them in the tourney and stuff like that. And it's really down. But cool. So anything else to hit on here with Winning Time Season 2, Episode 3?
No, that's it for me. I think that it's pretty clear that the next episode is being telegraphed to be this, what comes ahead between Paul Westhead and Pat Riley, how the next season goes, which in some ways is a successful one for Lakers. In some ways it's not, but it's the most interesting dynamic of the season of what's going to happen between these two coaches. So I'm excited to see how they portray that.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that immensely. And then talking about the timeline of the 7 episodes, I wouldn't be surprised if at some point they speed race through a couple of years almost. We'll see how it goes.
Yeah.
But cool. So we'll pick up next week with episode 4. Thanks for listening. As always, please do check out the website, tvobsessive.com. You can follow us on Facebook, Instagram, on Twitter, or X, if you so prefer, I suppose. I set up social media on Mastodon the other night. So if you use Mastodon, if you're one of those cool kids who likes Mastodon, you can find stuff on there. Now, also, I encourage everyone to check out the YouTube channel. Please like, subscribe, help us get that going. The podcast in audio form is widely available. We're using a podcast just on Podbean if you want to find it directly. Yeah, that's about it. Ryan?
Yeah, I really appreciate it all the time you've put in with me today, Cameron. I'm on X as well at Cable Box Score. Looking forward to this next episode next week. We'll be back a week from today, I believe. And until then, thanks so much, and we appreciate everyone being here with us.
All right, sounds good, Ryan. We'll see you next week.